Today on episode 49 of Audacity to Lead, I'll share with you how to pursue your passion and profit with purpose. Specifically, I'll share with you how to run a profitable calling.
Inspiring, actionable content that helps you get focused, get started, and be impactful. This is Audacity to Lead.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Audacity to Lead. I am Dio Samuel, and I'm your host, and this is the podcast where I give you the courage and necessary insight to step out and lead with more influence. Every week I bring you tips, steps, and strategies that help you develop a compelling message, a marketable learning program and product, and of course a meaningful platform. And in that line, today I want to share with you on how to run a profitable calling. I know this particular episode is going to set the pace for other things that you'll be doing this year, even other things that we will be doing this year on Audacity to Lead. And so for that, I want you to pay close attention to what I'll be sharing with you today on this episode. If you can go ahead and do the things I'll share with you on this episode, you'll practically move your goals further by 50%, because I know you have the goal of doing something meaningful with your life this year and also making more profit this year. If that is not your goal, you can actually at this point stop this podcast and not listen to it anymore. But of course, I know that is one of your goals, or maybe those are two of your goals. So you want to build a profitable calling, you want to build a calling, you want to run your calling, you want to pursue your passion, and you also want to build some profit along with that calling. And so this particular episode is for you. So welcome once again. How has your week been? Hope you've had an amazing 2016 so far. If you were like me, who decided that this year I'm going to enjoy myself, I think you are on the right path with me on this podcast. And so for the whole of this year, I want you to actually follow this podcast keenly. Every Monday between now and March, every Monday I'll be releasing this podcast, but from April I'll change it to Tuesday. So I want you to actually follow this podcast this year, and you'll get a lot of value coming from this podcast. And so with that said, I want to just tell you a little story. And actually, there's this story of Brendan Burchard I read some time ago, where Brendan didn't see himself as an entrepreneur. He wanted to do what he was called to do. He wanted to do what he actually has the passion for. But he never saw himself as an entrepreneur. He never saw himself as somebody who's building a business. And so what happened? He was broke. He started to live in his girlfriend's apartment. He had quit his corporate job to start his dream of becoming a writer and trainer. Of course, he knew nothing about running a business. No one knew him. He didn't even know how to write or publish a book. And at that time, Facebook and YouTube were just new. So he had to teach himself how to build websites and do online marketing. Now, the apartment Brendan was living then was so small that there was no room for a proper desk. So he had to work and write on a fold-out desk borrowed from his mother's old sewing room. That is, it was an extension. It was like a makeup of the sewing machine his mom was using. So he now used the bed as an extended desk, and then he had to pile all the papers, the notes that he was working with. Then one night, Brendan watched his girlfriend walk into the bedroom, and while the girlfriend was trying not to disturb Brendan or even the papers he had in the room, the lady quietly went under the bed cover and then tried to sleep. And then Brendan broke down and he almost wanted to cry. Now, at this point in Brendan's life, this made him to make a decision that he was either going to become a writer and trainer and build a business doing it, or he was going to get in the game That is, he was going to get in the game despite the uncertainty and hardship, waking up each morning to thrust his intention into the distance like a spear and to do the things that really matter until he actually ends up successful, or he was going to fold up, exhausted, and try to do the things every other person was doing. Now notice, Brandon had passion. He had some levels of expertise. He was trying to build something for himself and something that will last beyond himself. But he had bills. He had things he had to pay for. And because he wasn't seeing himself as an entrepreneur, there was no way he could meet those needs that were pending. And so let me ask you, what have you been believing that probably have told you that you can actually earn from running your calling, that you can't attach some profit to what you are doing? I've been there before, at least for the first 6 to 7 months of Audacity to Lead. I didn't specifically come up with any product I could sell or anything, even though I'd already done a program like that. But I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur at first. But one day in November 2014, something happened. I discovered that I'm an entrepreneur with specialty in podcasting, online marketing, branding, and advertising. And after that, I discovered that I was an entrepreneur with specialty in those things. And then I changed the whole system. I changed how I did things. And the funny part is that after I did that, things changed. And I was able to earn some profit from doing what I do, what I have been doing, and what I'll still be doing. Now, like Brendan did, he decided he was not going to waste his days thinking, dreaming, crying about the things other people are doing to him. He decided he must change the situation, follow his dreams with more passion, focus, and intensity. He decided to fight for his art and amplify his voice in the world so that he can make greater difference. He decided not to worry about the critics and instead give his whole heart and effort to those who wanted progress and positivity in their lives. He decided to think bigger to overcome his fears and insecurities, and also to think about changing the world. Now I'm certain that you also want to change the world. But the thing is, in fact, one of the things I'm going to be emphasizing this year is that make a ton of difference, or let me put it this way, make a ton of profit from making a ton of difference in people's lives. You can change the world, but you don't have to let your small business make you small-minded. Now, many years after, Brandon Burchard is now the popular Brandon everybody knows. He's still the same guy, driven by the first desire to live life fully, to love openly, and to make a difference in people's lives. But the thing is he actually still looks the same. His physique has not changed that much. Maybe it wasn't like me who had to change my dress style, who had to change my hairstyle. Now, some of the things that have changed between that time in Brandon's life and now, the platforms have changed, the venues have changed, the fans have changed, the customers have changed. And now Brandon works from the comfort of the home he has always dreamt about. And actually in 2014, he had over 17 million views on his YouTube channel alone. And he wrote a book that debuted as #1 on New York Times bestseller list. And this is somebody who never saw himself as an entrepreneur in the first place. But as he went on, he discovered if he doesn't imbibe that mindset of an entrepreneur, it's not going to make a ton of difference and also make a ton of profit. So I believe you are probably like that. And that's why I'm doing this episode for you today, to share with you how you can actually run your profitable calling. How you can run your calling in a profitable manner. And I'm going to be sharing 5 basic things with you, which I believe by the end of this episode, you should be able to put to action almost immediately. And so, like I said, the first thing you need to do, which is not part of the 5 things I want to share with you, is actually to have a mindset that I call a buy and sell mindset. If you have to sell something, if you have to buy something, you have to sell something. If you have to sell something, you have to buy something. If people have to buy into you, you have to sell your message to them. If people have to buy your product, you have to sell your idea to them. The thing is, if you're actually going to run a calling that actually changes a lot of lives, you are going to do a lot of selling in the process. You're either selling your ideas, selling yourself, selling your message, selling your product, selling your organization. So all you need to do is just take that same mindset and apply it to your calling. And so this is number 1 step that you actually need to do. First of all, clarify on what it is that you really want to pursue. Now, there are 2 things that you can actually pursue when you are running a profitable calling, when you are running a calling actually. I said clarify on what you really want to pursue. Are you going to be going after need, or are you going to be going after greed? Now, let me explain what those 2 things mean. Need actually means how you solve people's problems. When you are pursuing need, you are actually helping people solve problems. You are meeting needs. Now, when you are pursuing greed, you are looking at how you can acquire as much as you can without releasing so much to others. So ask yourself, are you pursuing need or you are pursuing greed? Because at this point, this is where you actually need to work on that mindset. Will you be focusing on the needs of people, or you are going to be focusing on your own needs? Now, the good part is, if you sit up, if you do your work well, meeting people's needs, money will always come back to you. But I'll get to that shortly. Number 2 thing that you need to do: develop higher intelligence quotient in your area of passion or profitability. And profitability actually. Develop a higher learning, learn better things, learn more things. Like I will always say, I'll ask you, what are the things you need to learn so that you can become more effective at the things you do? So look at yourself and look at your calling and say, okay, what are the things I really need to learn? Develop higher intelligence quotient, master the things you do, master them very well. So let's say your calling is in the area of helping people manage their emotions. You should so become a master at managing people's emotions that people can see that this is one core expertise that you have. And so for you to master people's emotions very well, you need to ask yourself, what are the things I really need to know? What upgrades do I need to do to my knowledge so that I can help people master their emotions very well? Number 3, look for opportunities to build relationships. If you are going to be running your calling, the thing is, money actually flows through relationships. Money flows through relationships. Money doesn't on its own jump from heaven or come down from the skies or even being dug out from the ground. Money flows through people. It comes through people. And the thing is, the more attention you pay to relationships, the more the money will flow to you. So build relationships. Focus your energies on building relationships. Because as you go on, people begin to refer that to you. It's something that has been happening to me with podcast coaching. When I help people start podcasts or help people build online platforms, one way or the other, somebody gets to like what they are doing and ask, how did you do this? And they said, the person that helped me is Dio. Okay, let me even give a very practical example. Grace Festus has a podcast called Empowered Emotions with Grace Festus. When she released her podcast, I think she had released about 7-8 episodes. Then she was in an NLP training program. At NLP training program, somebody heard a podcast and asked her, I've always wanted to do something like this, but I don't know how to do it. How are you able to do it? And the person she referred to the person that asked happens to be Yinka Ajagbe, who now runs Real Life Stories podcast. What happened between Yinka having a podcast and when she met Grace Festus? Grace Festus told us that the person who helped me is Dio, and I think that's the only person I know right now that can actually help you get your podcast up and running. And so Yinka contacted me, and that was how she was able to sign up and become a client of mine, who we still work together till today. I wouldn't have been able to get the money in Yinka's hand if I had not built a relationship. If I had not built a relationship with Grace Festus. Do you understand what I'm trying to say right now? Money actually flows through relationships, not just based on referrals, but because every single person who has your money in their hands, you have to create a link to get your money from their hands. So focus on building relationships. And number 4, monetize what you do. Now, monetizing what you do doesn't mean that you begin to tell people that if they don't pay you, okay, it's like somebody that said, if you have to chat with me just on Facebook, you have to pay me so amount of money. And somebody got offended and came to me and asked that, why would that guy be charging money to just have a chat with me? And I told him, and I said, well, it is to cut off people who are not really serious. He may not really need the money that you have, but it's because he needs to know people who are serious from people who are not serious. And that's the thing with monetizing what you do. The moment you begin to say people should pay for something, they begin to take you more seriously, because they can see that now you are not just doing something for fun, you're actually doing something that actually builds a business. And that is the number 4 thing. Monetize. If you can't monetize everything, monetize a part of it so that you can be seen to be selling. The moment you are perceived as selling, people will begin to value you even better. Like I said when I was sharing my story, I'd been running Audacity to Lead for 6 to 7 months, from June to December, and I never charged anything. I never made anybody pay for anything. And people were just taking me just like that. But as I crossed into another phase of Audacity to Lead and began to monetize the things I was doing, first off, I released a product. Second, I launched a program where people were to pay to enter into the program. People began to value what I have. I believe you've been able to understand that. Now, number 5 is create a precious packaging. Don't just go out there putting out the things you know in a way that is raw and okay, let me even give a very practical example when it comes to precious packaging. And I call it precious packaging because the way you package what you have is what will determine how people will perceive it. And like my friend Semako, we always say, perceived value is what will make people to actually open their wallets to you. So you have to consciously create that perceived value, and the easiest way to create it is to package what you are doing in a way that looks precious. Now, let me bring something to your attention here. Some months ago, the way I used to talk on the podcast isn't the way I talk right now, right? I know if you've been following this podcast from maybe episode 1, maybe 7, or maybe from episode 11 or from 17, you would have noticed that the way I talk now is not the way I was talking then. What changed? I began to hear people tell me that I actually love your content, but I don't like the way you talk. And because I was keen on developing myself, because I was keen on reaching some people, I had to do an upgrade to the way I talk. I had to get a coach to help in the area of my speech patterns. And I was able to at least master it up to this time. At least now, compared to before, I talk better. That's part of the packaging, because my voice is how people get to hear me first before they even meet me. So I have to work on my voice. So that has to do with precious packaging for me, for this podcast particularly, not just podcast anyway. But look at what you do and say, okay, how can I package what I'm doing in a way that actually looks precious? Gold cannot be packaged the same way that diamond is packaged, right? They are packaged differently. And because of their packaging, people pay different prices to get gold or to get diamond. Think upon that. Now, those are the 5 things I was going to share with you, but I'm very good today. And so I'm going to add a special bonus to it. And I think this special bonus is how you can actually get started right now and quickly do something. And the number 6 here right now, this bonus is that you should start. Why did I say start? Is it because I just talked about my device talk? Okay, so number 6 is actually start by serving low-end clients. And I repeat again, start by serving low-end clients. Now, there are 2 types of people you can focus on. There are 2 types of clients you can serve. There are low-end clients and there are high-end clients. Now, the best way to kickstart your calling is to begin with low-end clients, where you actually provide a very intense value to them. Now, this means that these people don't have to pay a lot of money to actually work with you, but you help them get the kind of result, the kind of outcome, the kind of transformation they need. And because you are able to do that, you can now leverage the results, the outcomes, the transformation you've had in those people's lives, and then build on that for high-end clients. Now, the thing is, if you have to work with high-end clients, sometimes some of them will want to look at what have you done before. Now, when you start by working with low-end clients, you actually have that thing that they are looking for, that what have you done before. I remember one day around May 2014, somebody chatted me up around 9 p.m. in the night and said she wants to have me handle her marketing, but she asked the question that, how can I trust you? So I sent her a link to my website, to my podcast, to go and check and to listen to a couple of them. The moment she landed on my site and saw the kind of people I've interviewed, saw the kind of, I think she went around and started reading some things. She saw the kind of things people were saying about me. She came back and said, okay, now I can trust you with my money. And she actually paid very high fee to work with me. Now, if I had not done the kind of work with those people who didn't pay as much as she did, I wouldn't have been able to enroll her. So I believe you understand what I'm saying right now. In fact, there's a guy by the name Sunday Adelaja who says it like this. He says, if you want to build, and he used a particular language, he said, if you really want to build the kingdom of God, we need to start by serving the people considered the least important and least valuable around us. And I think that actually really hits the point here, because that way you build capacity, you build competence, and you are able to master the things you really want to do. So I believe as you go ahead this year, I believe as you start out this 2016, I believe this should be a very good foundation for you to kick off. And of course, like I said, my intention this year on this podcast is to help you do more by helping you make a ton of profit, making a ton of difference in people's lives. Once again, I am Dio Samuel, and this is Audacity to Lead, and I'll see you again on the next episode. If you want to reach out to me to find out anything, or you want to even listen to or get more resources, you can visit audacitytolead.com. And if you want to reach me, you can use the get in touch page on audacitytolead.com to reach me. And I'll be looking forward to hearing from you. Maybe you just heard some of the things I said and you would like to have me work with you. I'll be glad to do that. And of course, maybe you want to set up your podcast, you want to develop your message in a way that is very compelling, or you want to set up your programs and products, or you even want to build a platform that helps you to make a ton of difference in people's lives. You can send me an email, dio@audacitytolead.com, and I'll be glad to work with you. Once again, I appreciate you for taking the last 20 minutes of your time to listen to this podcast. I really appreciate you, and I hope to have you next Monday. Once again, I implore you to get focused, get started, and be impactful.